Hi, I'm Matt from the Capitol Trail Foundation, and I'm here with Christina Vida, a curator at the Valentine Museum, and we're going to talk about the Breathing Places exhibit about parks and recreation in Richmond. So Christina, to kick us off, would you just give us kind of a rundown on what the exhibit's about?
Definitely. So the exhibit, Breathing Places, Parks and Recreation in Richmond, talks about the early history of the parks here in town, as well as the counties, looks at the development and how the city really expanded into the counties in the late 19th and early 20th century. We take a look at the various places for recreation around town. We also look at the river and really the reclamation of the riverfront in the 20th century, sporting venues, and then we talk about some of those health consequences of varied access and the inequitable access that many Richmonders have had to green spaces over the centuries. And then we have I think a wonderful sort of wrap up where we empower people to go out and make a change, right? So our green places have not always been green, and it really takes action on the part of citizens to go out and plant trees and make places more green and more accessible. So we want people to leave here, they know a little bit of history about the breathing places that are around town, but also how they can contribute to making more.
Wonderful. One of the things that really struck me during the walkthrough was the conversation about access that you all seem to be having really intentionally in the exhibit. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Certainly. So for myself, as a white woman, I experience a park in I think a pretty easy way, but since the 19th century here in Richmond, if you've been a person of color, our sources show that you have been prevented from enjoying green spaces here in town, whether it was our earliest park around Capitol Square or some of those early other parks like Monroe Park, Libby Hill, Gambles Hill. Those really were dedicated for white Richmonders. And then with that early segregation, as the city grows, so too does the segregation of public spaces. And so we're not seeing the same patterns of home ownership for white Richmonders versus black Richmonders and other Richmonders of color. And so that then has ramifications for today. I think 2020 showed us that being within easy walking distance of a green space is not only important for your physical health, but also for your mental health. And when you've got over a century worth of unequal access to either public parks or own private yards, that makes a difference when it comes to a time when we're all trying to get outside.
Absolutely. And talking about 2020, I know on the trail our user count was up substantially. Have you seen a lot of extra interest, do you think, driven by the fact that more Richmonders are engaging with green spaces this year?
Well, we are seeing some people return to the museum. We're really glad to be open to the public. You're welcome to come in and see the exhibit if you want to bring your mask, and we would love to have you here. But also I think the interest of people learning the history of these places that they're going out and seeing for the first time, whether it's the Capitol Trail, which is still relatively new here in town, or even historic places like some of our cemeteries around town, be it Hollywood Cemetery, Oakwood Cemetery, or some of our private cemeteries like Evergreen, Barton Heights cemeteries as well. So yeah, we are seeing some renewed interest as people are trying to learn about the places that they're going to for the first time.
Wonderful. And there is a community engagement aspect to this exhibit as well, right? Can you kind of tell the public about that?
Definitely. So we would love for people to send in their favorite photos of themselves out in a Richmond green space. Again, that green space could be a public park, could be out on the Capitol Trail. My father-in-law did bike down to Jamestown just last week. Took a few selfies along the way.
Awesome.
But it could also be a historic photo. Maybe you got married in Richmond in the 70s somewhere and want to submit one of your wedding photos, whether it's from Maymont, or maybe you've been out to Lewis Ginter Botanical Gardens, and have enjoyed the green spaces out there. So wherever that green space is in Richmond, if you've got a favorite photo, you can visit our website and submit it that way, and we're uploading them into the slideshow in the exhibit on a monthly basis.
Awesome. On a personal level, do you have any favorite pieces of this exhibit? Anything that really speaks to you?
Well, I do really like the penny farthing, which is one of those bicycles with a giant front wheel.
Sure.
And it relates to an early image that we have from the Cook collection of the Executive Mansion. and some young white boys who are out there practicing on their penny farthings. And also in frame are some black maids who are attending small white children, which in the late 19th and early 20th century was really the only way that Black Richmonders were experiencing some of the city's finest public parks. So I think the sort of the threads of exploring sort of how recreation and white supremacy and racism is why I'm drawn to that particular penny farthing. But I also really love a grouping of objects that were used in Monroe Square. So we've got a reproduction of a lithograph when Monroe Square was being used as the state fairgrounds in the 1850s. The state fair has since moved all around and is now, of course, out at Doswell. But we also have a memorial ribbon from when there was going to be a huge Jefferson Davis monument built in Monroe Park, fortunately never built. And then also a mourning pin and some handbells that were used during a memorial service after the Virginia Tech massacre in 2007. So just showing the layers of how these spaces have evolved over time and their use by Richmonders, I think really speaks to the fact that we today can make a change. It doesn't always have to be the way that it was. You can go out and turn it, really help make more green spaces around town.
Love to hear that. Yeah, I think one of the really fascinating things to me was seeing these places that I've been going for years and years, and how it used to be something completely different. I mean, talking about the reservoir at Bird Park and how that was built. I live a handful of blocks from there, and you just don't think about the history always as you're walking by. I think that's really, really interesting. Going to bring it back to a Capitol Trail thing. Do you have any favorite Capitol Trail memories?
Well, one of my favorite Capitol Trail memories was taking our now 5- and 7-year-old when they were 2 and 4. And we went on the Richmond section of the Capitol Trail. And we had some meltdowns, but they really
Sure.
they really loved exploring the city from that perspective. And then also as a history buff, by the time you get farther out from the city, there's just so many wonderful historic markers that you can stop and explore and
Absolutely.
learn about the history of this region while also getting your physical exercise in.
All right. Well, Christina, thank you so much for chatting with us today. And if you have a chance, definitely come out and see the Breathing Places exhibit, get some history on the green spaces in Richmond, and we will see you on the trail.